Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. The Sunlit Path. Sri Aurobindo. The sunlit path can be followed by those who are able to practice surrender. First, a central surrender, and afterwards a more complete self-giving in all the parts of the being. If they can achieve and preserve the attitude of the central surrender, if they can rely wholly on the divine and accept cheerfully whatever comes to them from the divine, then their path becomes sunlit, and may even be straightforward and easy. They will not escape all difficulties. No seeker can. But they will be able to meet them without pain and despondency. As indeed the Gita recommends that yoga should be practiced, trusting in the inner guidance and perceiving it more and more, or else in the outer guidance of the Guru. It can also be followed even when one feels no light and no guidance, if there is, or if one can acquire, a bright, settled faith and happy bhakti, or has the nature of the spiritual optimist, and the firm belief or feeling that all that is done by the divine is done for the best, even when we cannot understand his action. You are quite mistaken in thinking that the possibility of the sunlit path is a discovery or original invention of mine. The very first books of yoga I read more than 30 years ago spoke of the dark and the sunlit way and emphasized the superiority of the second over the other. It is not either because I have myself trod the sunlit way or flinched from difficulty and suffering and danger. I have had my full share of these things, and the mother has had 10 times her full share. But that was because the finders of the way had to face these things in order to conquer. No difficulty that can come on the sadhak, but has faced us on the path. Against many we have had to struggle hundreds of times. In fact, that is an understatement. Before we could overcome, many still remain protesting that they have a right until the perfect perfection is there. But we have never consented to admit their inevitable necessity for others. It is, in fact, to ensure an easier path to others hereafter that we have borne that burden. It was with that object that the mother once prayed to the divine, that whatever difficulties, dangers, sufferings were necessary for the path might be laid on her rather than on others. It has been so far heard that as a result of daily and terrible struggles for years, those who put an entire and sincere confidence in her are able to follow the sunlit path, and even those who cannot, yet when they do put the trust, find their path suddenly easy. And if it becomes difficult again, it is only when distrust, revolt, abhiman, or other darknesses come upon them, the sunlit path is not altogether a fable. For the leader of the way, in a work like ours, has not only to bring down and represent and embody the divine, but to represent too the ascending element in humanity, and to bear the burden of humanity to the full, and experience, not in a mere play or leela, but in grim earnest, all the obstruction, difficulty, opposition, baffled and hampered, and only slowly victorious labor, which are possible on the path. But it is not necessary nor tolerable that all that should be repeated over again to the full in the experience of others. It is because we have the complete experience that we can show a straighter and easier road to others, if they will only consent to take it. It is because of our experience, won at a tremendous price, that we can urge upon you and others, take the psychic attitude, follow the straight sunlit path, with the divine openly or secretly upbearing you. If secretly, he will yet show himself in good time. Do not insist on the hard, hampered, roundabout, and difficult journey. The sunlit path can only be followed if the psychic is constantly or usually in front, or if one has a natural spirit of faith and surrender, or a face turned habitually towards the sun, or if one has acquired the psychic turn. That does not mean that the sunlit man has no difficulties. He may have many, but he regards them cheerfully as all in the day's work. If he gets bad beatings, he is capable of saying, "Well, that was a queer go, but the divine is evidently in a queer mood. And if that is his way of doing things, it must be the right one. I am surely a still queerer fellow myself, and that, I suppose, was the only means of putting me right." But everybody can't be of that turn. And surrender, which would put everything right, is, as you say, difficult to do completely. That is why we do not insist on total surrender at once, but are satisfied with a little to begin with, the rest to grow as it can. The goal of yoga is always hard to reach, but this one is more difficult than any other. And it is only for those who have the call, the capacity, the willingness to face everything and every risk, even the risk of failure, and the will, complete surrender, that the psychic foundation of sadhana can be made. If once it fixes itself, then whatever difficulties remain to be overcome, the course of the sadhana becomes perfectly easy, sunlit, natural, like the opening of a flower. From the Mother. Sri Aurobindo has written in Savitri, "Yes, there are happy ways near to God's Son, but few are they who tread the sunlit path. Only the pure in soul can walk in light." What a joy it would be to possess the required purity. Mother, when one is living among men with all their miseries, it is only the grace that can bestow this state. Even in those who by tapasya have abolished their ego, it is beyond all personal effort. 7 May 1968. Mother again. I had a clear vision of the two kinds of opposites in nature, not only in nature but in life, which almost everyone carries within himself. One is the possibility of realization, the other is the path chosen to attain it. There is always, it's probably inevitable, the stormy path of struggle, and then there is the sunlit path. After much study and observation, I have had a sort of spiritual ambition, if it can be called that, to bring to the world a sunlit path, to eliminate the necessity for struggle and suffering, something that aspires to replace this present phase of universal evolution with a less painful phase. Namaste.